Hello Dungeon Masters and players, here with another review, DM Dango, this time on the BloodHunter from Matthew Mercer. So the BloodHunter class is a very tormented, very macabre style look on a class where sacrifice is the main order of the day. Looking at the BloodHunter and looking at the various art, which is absolutely beautiful, along with it, there's very much a theme of using the evils that are out there to smite greater evils across the entire class. But there also is the other side of that. By using evil, you are shunned in society. You are looked on as a leper, as a leech, as some kind of horrible born creation, half in the world of monsters and half in the world of man. And it even goes into some bits at the very end of this lore that one of the greatest fears of the BloodHunter is to become these monsters that they fight. And it's rather interesting. It would be interesting to see, and I know that Matt has done some corruption rules for some of his other areas when they were going through and doing all the Briarwood arc. All of that corruption stuff was beginning to take effect, and it would be nice to see some of that brought into the BloodHunter as an idea, as a way of kind of allowing for corruption. Perhaps combining the two systems together would be the best way forward. But the BloodHunter as a class is essentially a martial class with some added extra bits of attack put on top of it. Stuff like being able to use your blood in order to empower your abilities, empower your strengths, and empower your damage. Also, in addition to that, you can do a certain number of blood curses. As you move up the levels, you begin to also get what's called the BloodHunter orders, and they split into three different subclasses from the various other classes with a different name. I like that the BloodHunters are so well thought out in terms of lore, and I suspect Matt has a lot of this lore and more written down, and it's the more I'm interested in from a world building perspective than anything else. I think that we'll probably see a lot of this stuff come up in the new Critical Role campaign. As for the classes itself, so at the start they have the basic ability they get is Crimson Right, which starts out very small, and it does 1d4 right damage extra on top of their normal damage, and the type of damage is dependent on which one the BloodHunter chooses. From the first, they can choose between three types: fire, cold, and lightning. Then they move on. When they get a little higher level, they can choose one of three, which is thunder, psychic, or necrotic. Now, those three damage types are less heavily resisted than any of the others. Thunder and Psychic particularly are hard for a lot of creatures to resist, and some even are vulnerable to Thunder. But you can choose which one you use when you draw the weapons. So anytime you use a Crimson Right ability, in fact, most BloodHunter abilities require you to sacrifice a certain amount of HP in order to use. So to start, for instance, you use your Crimson Right at level 1, it costs 1 HP. At level 2, 2, and so on and so forth. Now this is character level, not BloodHunter level as well. So if you multi-class into this, you still require the same percentage amount of HP in order to use it. So no cheating out on multi-classing here. You also get the fighting style benefits of a fighter and a ranger. In addition, you get blood curses, and they do various things, from binding your opponents to blinding them, but my favorite has to be Blood Curse of the Fallen Puppet, which allows you to, when you fell an enemy, to have him make one final attack against one of his allies. And I love that concept. Thematically, it's beautiful. I'm using your own allies against you, and from a thematic point of view, you could terrify someone with this. This sounds like something horribly awful to do to somebody. So moving on from that, you then have the various orders that further refine your abilities down one of three paths. The first of which is the Order of the Ghost Slayer. The Order of the Ghost Slayer allows you to do radiant damage with your BloodHunter rights, which is a very big thing when you consider things like a lot of the undead are either vulnerable or have some extra effect attached to radiant. Zombies, for instance, will now be able to die without you having to work on a crit, or they will be at that saving throw. Very nice for that. As part of this, the whole focus of this subclass appears to be undead slaying with some other bits. You can also do things like move you outside your body, and then at later levels, if you drop to 0 HP, you can get back up again to continue the fight as a spirit. It's a rather interesting mechanic, although I wonder how often it will get used. At level 18, if you go down to 0, I suspect something's gone terribly wrong. You now have the Order of the Profane Soul, which is a Warlock BloodHunter hybrid. That means that you get a lot of good spells, as the Warlock spell list is quite powerful in terms of what you gain, cantrips and spell slots, and it has the same mechanical way of recharging spells that Warlock does. So there's no worry about, oh, I've only got 2 and they'll run out and then I'll never use them again. And in actual fact, I think this feels better for certain playstyles than the Elder's Knight does. The Elder's Knight suffers from certain limitations that mean that most of them end up slightly pigeonholed down the magical defender. This one feels more like a true Dark Knight, using magic to attack and be aggressive with it, as well as being able to dish out martial damage. In addition to that, they also have, as part of this main focus of the Profane Soul, is you make a pact with one of the normal Warlock patrons. And depending on that pact, your right damage changes ever so slightly. Now, the final one, the Order of the Mutant. This is the one that definitely feels the most Witcher-like. It has the whole idea behind the potions and drinking them to change your metabolism and change your body in ways that allow you to do various things. Some of these things are things like being able to fly. The other things are more simple, like increasing your strength score. But each of these mutagens has a downside. For instance, flying, you have disadvantage on strength and dexterity ability checks. Could be important if somebody's trying to grapple you. So in closing, the BloodHunter class feels like a wonderful built, well-balanced class. There have definitely been revisions gone through, as I mentioned earlier. Version 1.6, little unbalanced. Version 2.0, definitely, I think it's nailed it on the head. I think this will probably be the final revision, unless, as Matt's playing with his current group, that they find that certain things are a little unbalanced, which can happen. Playtesting always reveals a lot more than number crunching. So, in terms of my rating, though, I think this is probably a 5 out of 5. In fact, I don't even say probably. This is a 5 out of 5 class. Everything is polished, well thought out, and well executed. There were some things that I would have liked to see more of, but nothing is ever going to be perfect. If it was perfect, then I wouldn't trust it in a lot of ways. I would like to see the mutagens explained as to what physical effects they have. Things like the flying effect. Do you sprout wings, or is it simply that you are so light that you can fly? Interesting, and either are possible within the confines of the game, and I suspect maybe that's why it's left up to the DM's discretion or the players, so that they can flavor these things to whatever way they want. It is nice to see that a class as dark as this can exist within the D&D universe and still feel like part of it. This doesn't feel like a stretch too far. It's fine. Thank you everyone for listening. Please remember to like and subscribe. Peace out.